the Daniel Cleland Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, welcome to the show. Today's a very special show. I have roped in one of my closest friends and, of course, business partner, as many of you know, on her day off after we've just finished a very intense week of healing people.
No rest for the wicked.
No rest for the blessed. This is Melissa Lynn Stangl, and Melissa will be joining me today to speak about her experience as an entrepreneur and how we formed Soltara and our journey along the way. So really excited. Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for finally having me on the show.
It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to organize this, but
life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. Exactly. So, as much as I know things about you, many people do not. So, I'm going to pretend like I don't know the answers to a lot of these questions. And so let's start off. Okay, so just a brief explanation of what Soltara is before we talk about how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So Soltara Healing Center is a Shipibo-guided ayahuasca center in Costa Rica. So we have both come from working with various Shipibo healers and communities in Peru and really hold this tradition dear to our hearts, working with the medicine in this way and really wanting to help be a bridge for people to come and experience this medicine, really focusing on integration of this work and helping to allow for this medicine to spread out into the world in a way that really maintains that connection to the indigenous roots where I think both of our hearts are from the Amazon.
So when you say this medicine, you mean ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. So what is ayahuasca to you?
Oof, so many things. Wow. Well, to me, it's a teacher, a medicine, and a really, really strong mirror for me, for my self and my higher self. It's a pathway for me to expand my potential and capacity to affect positive change in the world. And it's an ally. I think that it's really done a beautiful job for me of connecting me to myself in a deeper way and therefore connecting me to my own purpose and mission, helping me to enact that in the world. It's been a very strong guide and there's been a lot of tough love in it. And I'm really grateful for that. I wouldn't be here without it. So, yeah.
That makes two of us, quite literally. So this plant medicine that has been your ally and your teacher and your mirror for all of this time, which has been a number of years. That of course, you know, we've been working together for a long time, and I believe I was there for your very first experience.
Yeah, I blame this entirely on you, Dan.
So, how about you share with our audience how you found yourself on this path?
Yeah, I definitely feel like this path was tangential to the path that I thought I was going to be on in my life. I was very much on a path of science and engineering and very corporate America. I thought I was going to pursue that path and rise up the ladder and make a lot of money. And I don't know. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but that's really what I thought I should do. So that was my plan at the tender age of 22. And I had a sense that there was probably more to this, I think, as most people do, and probably a lot of people in this, in your audience and community. But I didn't really know how to access that at all. And between graduating college, where I was working in research labs and I had a degree in engineering, I was about to take a corporate job, and I was really just looking for something to orient me to this next phase of my life that I wasn't actually super excited about. I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to take this job and, I'll make a lot of money, but I'm not really sure I'm going to love it. And through the wonderful platform of Reddit, I came across your post back in 2013. So gosh, it's been like 8 years now, where you were quite frankly just saying, I take people into the jungle to do ceremonies with Shipibo shamans and ask me anything. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And it was really, I don't even remember how I got onto this forum, or I just popped up and I was like, okay, like, let's see what this is about. And I asked some questions and you answered them immediately. And we had a bit of a back and forth. And I was like, cool, this guy seems legit. Looked on your nascent website at the time and like, oh, there was a June solstice journey. And there was like an interesting timing in that, because I was literally looking for something in June. I graduated in May. I was starting my job in July. So I was like, okay, maybe that's like good timing. And it was interesting. I look back at it now, and I think it was really the first time that I followed my intuition about something rather than, oh yes, this is what I should be doing and this is the logical next step. And it was a kind of a big leap in that regard already, because I was essentially committing to going into the Amazon jungle to do psychedelic medicine with someone I had met online. So, but for some reason, I felt I had a good vibe. So thanks for the good vibes. And ended up going on that trip with my partner, who didn't think I would come back if I went on this trip. So he came with me, Ross, and it was awesome. I mean, I remember some really, really interesting, we had to get a boat from a 13-year-old boy because our bus was caught in the mud. And it was kind of like crazy, but it was like Peruvian adventure crazy. And I had never experienced anything like ayahuasca before that. And it was extremely healing for me. It really touched some places that really needed healing. And after that, I was like, okay, well, I have to go take this job, but I love what you're doing, man. Like, let's keep in touch, right? And the divine timing of all of this is funny because a year later, I know you were kind of opening the center down in Peru and was following your progress, and did not envy you at the time, trying to make sure you got enough wood out of the Amazon to be able to open in time. It was fascinating following the whole journey. I was like, that looks stressful, but you did it. And then a year later, I was 2 years into that job, and I was looking for a change. I was ready to move to California, or I don't know, do something different. And then an email popped in my inbox from you saying, we're expanding the team and we need an operations manager. Fastest cover letter I've ever written in my life. And then I remember you saying, okay, like this seems like a legit, application, but can you learn Spanish quickly enough to talk with fast talking, slang using Peruvians? And do you actually understand that this involves moving to Iquitos for at least a year? And I said, yep, give me 2 months. I understand. And, when I applied, I was like, I don't think I'm going to get it, but I have to try. And then when I got it, I was like, well, now I have to take it. So yeah, that was the second leap of faith. And I think, for me, it really felt like these 2 time points in my life when I was really looking for some guidance and looking for orientation to the path forward for me. And ayahuasca showed up in both of them, and so did you. So yeah, followed that, and I was literally a tangential path from there. I do sometimes joke that like we've been recruited by the plants. I just kind of followed my feet, really. So,
were you aware of ayahuasca before you saw that Reddit post?
So somehow I got on the ayahuasca thread, like the forum, but I don't actually remember really looking into it. I think I had watched the DMT spirit molecule before, so I was like vaguely aware of it, but it wasn't anything that was super on my radar. It wasn't honestly a super common thing at the time. Like it was still kind of out there to even like go into the jungle and do it, you know? So I didn't know anything about the traditions or really the culture surrounding it. And yeah, definitely didn't have a deeper understanding of what this is and its potential.
So you were kind of just waiting for a call to adventure in a sense. You were open, you wanted something, and then something came on your radar and you were ready to engage it. So you just took a leap of faith.
Yeah, I always felt like I had a lot of potential for something. Like I didn't know what it was. I kind of felt like, okay, I'm relatively good at math and like I understand science. And so that seemed like a lucrative path forward. But like, did I really feel in my core that like that was the adventure I wanted? No, you know, and so yeah, when this called, I was like, wow, this is different. And this has a lot of potential to help people. And in ways that like I still, you know, I'm still discovering now, honestly. And yeah, so it definitely felt like there was a potential within myself that I didn't know how to realize. And so I was just kind of waiting for what would come forth and show me the way. Mm-hmm.
I think that is common actually with people. So you were at that time, what, 25 or 22?
So yeah, I was 23 when we went in 2013.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt a similar thing around the same age when, you know, you're looking at the road ahead and you see this kind of predictable work life, just like for now until you can't do it anymore. And I think a lot of people feel that. A lot of people in their, you know, kind of 20s, 30s looking for something unique and engaging and challenging and adventurous to do.
It's hard because you're told for the first 21 years of your life exactly what the path is. You're like, you go to school, you go to high school, you go to, you know, college, and or get a trades, you know, get an occupation, and then that's your occupation. And yeah, exactly. You kind of follow that all the way through. And, you know, I think for kind of our generation is starting to not necessarily find that super exciting all the time. And some people might, you know, like a lot of people I've worked with in the past, they work to live, they work to facilitate the life outside of work, and that works well for people. For me, I always wanted to live to work because I felt like that meant I was doing something I really loved and I could just throw myself into it 100%. And I just wasn't finding that, you know, with the options that were in front of me. And at 23, there was just such a lack of understanding of who I even was. And so ayahuasca really helped me to start to see who I was first. And it just so happened that then I decided to kind of pursue that. But yeah, I think for, you know, a lot of people, it's that period of time around the early 20s is kind of like, okay, well, who am I? I need to figure that out first before I can figure out what to do with myself in a way.
Yeah. That's really the essence of entrepreneurship, isn't it? Being able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh my God. Every single day. Yes. In so many ways too. And it's like, you don't even know. One, you don't know what you don't know. And then once you find that out, then you realize how much you don't know about it. And then you have to kind of address that. And usually the way that gets addressed is through hard experience and challenges. It's not really, I mean, certainly, you know, you can absorb content and read the books, but there's no exchanging, actually just being in that situation and having to fly by the seat of your pants and really accept failure. And I think that to me is the part where I was so uncomfortable with it, because I was straight A student, you know, got the honors, got into the Ivy League college, got the master's. And it was like, these are metrics where I can excel. And I was able to go after things that I knew I would already be good at. And then, you know, kind of this new path, it was like, I don't know anything. And I'm really flying by the seat of my pants. And, you know, having to accept failure is really hard for a culture and society that really demands perfection in a lot of ways. And there's like a I think that's actually a chronic problem for Western culture in general. And there's a lot of layers to that too. I think social media doesn't help, and really kind of getting down to the realness of, you are who you are, and when you fail, you're still you. You're not any less worthy. You're not any. In fact, that's a good thing. And reframing that as like failures equal experience, and just letting yourself fail again and again until you just keep picking yourself back up and try again and apply some of those lessons. And yeah, it's quite the journey though.
Well, that's another inextricable aspect of entrepreneurship, is having to stare failure in the eye every single day, really, especially for the first little while. In our case, like 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
before
absolutely.
we started feeling a little bit comfortable.
Yeah, and it seems like every time we start to feel a little bit comfortable, a new challenge presents itself. Exactly. We were like, the beginning of 2020, we were like, oh, okay, maybe this is actually like starting to be sustainable now. And then COVID, and I think that's the case for so many people. But that was a curveball that was a real existential threat to our international tourism travel business. Like you can't really be in a worse demographic for that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody's had a challenging year. I think in terms of business, few more so than businesses that depended on the free movement of people between places and countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But that whole time too, because we had just come through the ringer, right? After those 2 years, I mean, there were so many challenges, and, for periods of time we were like, I mean, personally for me, I was like beyond redlining. Like I remember saying that to you at one point, and really trying to find support and mentors and guides. And like I ended up getting a coach, which really helped with building resiliency for that and having a support system. But kind of getting to that place of ease, and kind of catching your breath, and then seeing that everything you just worked for might crumble, was hard. But you know what? I had the faith. Like I really had trust that I was like, I don't think our work is done. Like we did not just work all of this time to get this to a place where, we're really helping people every week. And, we've got such an amazing team, and I feel like we have the plants as our allies. And I just didn't think that, so even during all the dread, I think maybe another aspect of entrepreneurship could be having that faith that it will work
Optimism.
out. Yeah, like it will work out how it needs to work out. And honestly, like at the end of the day, even if this failed, like we would try something else. We would do something else. We would still try and make an impact, and I'd still be Melissa and you'd still be Dan. And, obviously there's a big part of our identity wrapped up in the business, and, it would be really hard. But at the same time, I was like, we don't just give up. Like we could give up, but then we would be like, what would we be doing with our life? We would be giving up. And I think we'd do more than that.
That's another key entrepreneurial lesson that I think is also inextricable is just that relentlessness, that like, you make an internal agreement with yourself that you're not going to stop no matter what. And so you keep going, and so you fail, you get back up, you try again, you keep going. And if you just keep beating against that, that wall, eventually you're gonna break through it. But we've alluded to a few things here. Can you take us back to chronologically how like Soltara got started? And then, we've talked about a couple of phases right here and the different emotional states we went through. So how did Soltara specifically come about? Because you were working with me down in Peru before this since 2015. And then,
Yeah. So Peru will always have a place in my heart. And, I really consider it my home for the medicine and where I came from in opening this path for me. And I always encourage anyone who's interested in going deeper with this work to go there. Living there full time for almost 2 years, very remote location and very difficult to work in a job that needs internet all the time. And it was hard, it was definitely hard. And I could see in myself that I was also a little bit in a bubble there, just very isolated. I mean, we couldn't even really like go run around, right? We were like right in the jungle, so kind of had to like stay on site. And so I could feel myself also, kind of looking ahead of like how can this work for me sustainably? I want to keep doing this work, but I also felt like I had really had a chance to go deep into the medicine work and do some plant dietas with the maestros and really learn that. And I was getting this message from the medicine towards the end of that time, like, I'm not going to give you any more answers. Like you need to go integrate. You need to get out of this bubble and like go back into the world and see what's next. And so I was kind of feeling that within myself, feeling like, okay, well, what does the next phase of this look like? I can't just keep doing this forever, right? And at that time, I think you were kind of also feeling like, okay, well, like what's next? What are we going to continue to do? How are we going to continue to grow? And you had sold some of the company to a new owner and were kind of pursuing other projects. And I think the transition was also a little bit hard for me. I mean, just, the trust that you and I had built working together for so long was really valuable and like the heart of, for me, what this work was about. And, with the change and transition and kind of things shifting on site a little bit. And I just felt like, okay, this was something that maybe it's time for a change for me as well. And, kind of answering emails and doing operations was really powerful for me for a long time. And I was kind of like, okay, I was already trying to see like, what does like a business development role look like? Or how can I kind of, take what I've learned and really, really implement it in a different way. So I ended up working remotely. So I went back to California for a year and did some remote work there, which was really, really interesting because I was out of this bubble that I had been in for almost 2 years, and I was having trouble integrating, honestly. Like I just didn't really know what to do with that. And I just basically holed up with my mom for a long time. And I was like, what should I do next? And I realized that because I was having such difficulty integrating and there were these kind of shifts within the business already, I was like, I can't be the only one that's like having trouble integrating. I mean, I know I've been down there for a while, but really getting this sense of like, okay, well, we talk about integration, we kind of like joke, like the hard work starts when you go back home, which isn't a joke, but that's kind of like, the vibe, but we don't actually really equip people with tools and support systems and an understanding of, the healing journey is much, much bigger than just like the 1 week trip that you go. And in fact, that's probably just the start of it, really. And how can we start to orient people like that? And how can we in this work help to be a bridge for people? Because a lot of people that we serve are coming from a more like Western, global, Northern culture. And so I was kind of thinking about that. And then you were kind of looking at what to do next. And you found this place in Costa Rica. And I know you had ties to Costa Rica from before Peru, and feeling like that's interesting because that actually is a bridge between like the global north and south. And so you were saying like, maybe we should just start fresh. Maybe we should start something new, take what we've learned and integrate it into this. And so it was this interesting convergence of of my own healing, wanting the tools to integrate that healing, seeing what was needed by the community of this type of support. And then this opportunity for you that you like kind of presented, which was, maybe we take this and like evolve it into something that's unique and different. And so, yeah, when you offered to found Soltara, I was like, well, I think we could really, like, what does it look like to liaise also with clinical psychologists who have plant medicine experience? What does it look like to develop a robust integration program? What does it look like to offer medicine in a traditional context, but not in its traditional home? How could, and these were all really interesting challenges that I was super excited about and got fired up about. And so yeah, it felt like a very almost like organic unfolding of my own healing, reflecting in my career and my career helping my healing, and this kind of like interesting circle of integrating these different things that, we had learned and what we felt was needed. And thus Soltara was born.
We originally weren't going to call it Soltara.
Oh my God, that was its own story, wasn't it? Yeah, we had a whole, it felt like it was like 500 different names that we were working through. I remember you were like, I think just feeling like we wanted it to be 3 syllables. Like we wanted it to kind of relate to the medicine work. We were like Solmara. We were circling around it for a while, actually. We were like Sun and Sea, Solmara, Ayamara. We were like, oh, that's already taken. Like these different, like, very close. Solara was another one too. And then I remember one day, I think I was smoking a mapacho, and I was like, I had felt for a long time like the perfect name was there and it just had to be discovered. I was like, this is already waiting for us. We just need to like discover it, right? And we were like going through, and then we were like, okay, well, we actually need to get this like website up. Like we need to figure out what this name is. And so I was like smoking this mapacho one day, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need to let go of the idea of a perfect name. Maybe I just need to let go of it. Let go. And I looked up Soltara because we wanted the 3 syllables, and it literally said to let go or release. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like as soon as I let it go, there it is.
So here we are in 2017, armed with, or actually, I think we actually figured the name out in 2018 because we had begun it with different names that we shuffled through, 2 or 3 of them, I think. One was like Pura Luz. And
oh yeah, that's right.
We were going to call it Pura Luz. The first intro video had that, and then we were going to call it Playa Medicina, which was my personal fave, but I actually like Soltara better. It makes a lot more sense. So here we are, like kind of 2017, 2018, hopeful, wide-eyed, excited to be, in Costa Rica on the beach, starting up this new place. And it wasn't as easy as we might have thought it was. What was that first bit? What was that first phase, getting set up, formulating the web content and making those initial connections and kind of really setting the stage for what we were going to do?
Yeah, it was, it's so interesting. Like from a bird's eye view, my naivete was on my side in that regard, because it was literally just fueled by like passion, inspiration, and this sort of like idea of like, well, I've been running a retreat center for a couple years now. How hard can it be to set up another one? Right. And man, I just, once you start really getting into it, it's like every aspect needs to be thought about. And like who's even going to be involved? Who are we going to call on for mentors? What is the program going to look like? And why is each piece of the program in place? I mean, I remember initially we were like, because in Pulse, we had been doing retreats, which were like, a week with ayahuasca and then a week with San Pedro. And we were connected to San Pedro as well. And that, was a beautiful medicine. And so we were like, well, are we going to offer multiple medicines? And what does that mean? And, just really wanting to be in integrity with the work and it's a fine line to walk as people from the West really like walking this path of indigenous medicine work and setting up the center and kind of placing ourselves in the movement, who's going to advise us, and I think at that point it was like, it was crazy in a operational logistical sense. Like that was kind of its own beast. And then there was also for me, like, I didn't want to, you kind of have to start on the right foot here, like there's really, you get one chance for like the first impression of your business. And it's not that everything had to be completely perfect, but you really do want to be like on the right path. And so even just deciding that, okay, we're only going to work with ayahuasca because like the healers, that's like, they don't really like, people healers don't work with San Pedro. Right. And so to kind of incorporate that and like overlay another tradition. And I'm not saying it's not a beautiful medicine. And, I think people do get healing out of working with, different medicines and that's great. But like, if we're really talking about being connected to the indigenous way of working with this medicine, like that's not what they would do. In fact, they would recommend not to work with any other medicine or even healer for, at least a month before and after. So yeah, like these really big, impactful decisions that could set us on the right course. And we had some amazing guidance during that time as well. Bia Labate was really helpful in helping us to kind of connect the dots there and also connect us to psychologists who had experience with the medicine and helped us develop an integration program. Dennis McKenna obviously was extremely helpful in kind of forming the overall mission and our culture. And I think that having had a little bit more guidance in that realm and then talking to psychologists and really thinking like, okay, like what can we do here that maintains that integrity of this work while also being a bridge? And like, that's a really fine line to walk, like that's, so having this like firm foot in both worlds while being respectful of both. And so that was crazy. And, being a smaller team, we were all kind of like doing a million things at a time. Like I was like choosing the granite countertop design. Like, I remember going shopping for like construction things and I'm like, wow, I'm out of my depth here. Like, this is a very interesting. So yeah, it definitely was a time that exercised a lot of different aspects of my brain. And it was wild. It was super exciting. And then I also realized that, you kind of have to have that push in the beginning and maybe you can push yourself for a pretty long time. But ultimately, for me as an entrepreneur, I'm realizing that so much of it is about sustainability and balance. And you cultivate that resilience for these things by ensuring that you have good boundaries with your own self-care too. I failed at that for a long time and it actually resulted in a physical injury. And that was really hard because for a while I was like, why isn't my body keeping up? Come on. I'm like in my 20s. What the hell? This is like, I should be stronger than this. And I was angry at my body. And, what I realized was like, wow, I'm killing myself working for a healing center. Like, how is that walking the walk? How is that in integrity? Right. And so then it was about actually being really grateful to my body for being a lot smarter than I am and forcing me to change my habits, decouple my own identity from my productivity so that I could actually get things done over the long term. It's like the great irony of all of this. It'll actually be more productive if you take that space and find ways to care for yourself and make it a long-term sustainable thing. I mean, that's, if you ask me what like the biggest thing I've learned from entrepreneurship, it's that.
Those are actually two really good lessons to acknowledge about entrepreneurship, is that very frequently at the beginning of an entrepreneurial journey, you've got fewer people doing a wider array of tasks, not only just the bandwidth of the output that you need to have for as long as it takes, really.
Yeah.
But you end up kind of being a jack of all trades because you just don't have you probably don't have the systems or you don't have the resources to get to like a place where we are now, which is like, we can have silos in the company. We can have specialties in the company. We can have people we can have enough people and each person be in charge of a thing or like an area, not just like, well, I need you to do this today, then I need you to do that today. I mean, we still fall into that to some degree, obviously, because, it's really hard. It's just always hard, but, yeah, good lessons. And then in terms of the sustainability and the personal care, I think any entrepreneur that I know and look up to that I've used as mentors over time, they all find a way to take care of themselves. Get the sleep, get the exercise, make sure you make time even for a half an hour workout in the morning or whatever. So you learned that.
Yeah. I mean, having healthy boundaries around things. And you're right. There's always going to be times when you have to push yourself, right? But how do you then make sure that you can also recover from that? And how do you pull in the help that you need so that it's sustainable for everyone? And I think that can be really hard when also it's like, it's funny because we named the place Let Go, and it was like I had trouble letting go of like some of the things because it's our baby, right? And so passing that on is also kind of this interesting thing, this interesting journey, for me as an entrepreneur of like, okay, I'm entrusting this part of the job, to another person. But you have to do that, you have to. And so then you're pushed into, for me, then I was pushed into, okay, how do I be a good like leader for people? And how do I help communicate clearly enough to pass on this vision, and, create a culture of collaboration to enhance the vision. And, when there's issues that arise and when the silos don't communicate enough, how do you weave that together? How do you walk the walk that you're doing it and lead by example? I'm not perfect at this. This is like a constant learning process for me. And I think that, a lot of this sort of leadership, management skills, it's also about finding this balance of these sort of like masculine and feminine energies. How do you make sure that the structures are in place that, you, in a sense, you have to have some hierarchy within a company in order for
order.
Yeah, accountability, right? Exactly. And, you have to make sure that, things are clean and clear and structured. And you also have to cultivate a collaborative environment. I mean, where we're working, it's very different than most other workplaces. I mean, our team is living together, working together, eating together. Like, they're coworkers, they're friends, they're family, and then you throw medicine work into it, and everyone's got their own healing journey, right? And that comes out inevitably in the context of a healing center. And it's hard to be in this space all the time, And so for us, it was like, okay, well, how do we create a working environment that is really supportive and sustainable for everyone involved? And how do we ensure that communication is clear? And how do we ensure that we're all aligned in our mission, and ask the hard questions and aren't afraid to confront? And also, for me, it was like not taking responsibility for other people's emotions, but like discerning, taking them into account to then make decisions that are best for everyone, whether or not that means that everyone's going to like me all the time, right? Like that was hard for me. That's been a challenge for sure. And
that's another great lesson for entrepreneurs as well. It's a reality that it's very difficult to be effective at running a company while also being best friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've gotta sometimes make calls that are not popular with people, and dealing with that is its own thing to overcome.
Yeah. And I'm a middle child, and I, have always kind of felt a little bit like being in the middle of something was somewhat my strength, because I could see multiple perspectives, and I was able to kind of look at both sides of an issue and help. Like this idea of being a bridge has been strong within me for a long time. And, I've got like the very like technical, scientific kind of mind. And then coming into this work is very spiritual and emotional. And so bridging these things, like our whole thing's integration, it's like that comes up for me in leading people when I am trying to make sure everybody feels taken care of. And sometimes that, that's, you're not always going to be liked by everyone, and you have to make decisions that aren't going to be, so pleasing to everybody. And coming face to face with that within myself has been really challenging. But again, it's just this practice of throwing yourself into uncomfortable situations for a long enough time that, you just kind of develop that resilience and really ultimately keeping the mission in mind. Like what's really best for what we're trying to do here, ultimately. What's best for the guests, what's best for the medicine.
So we get all set up. We have the brand, we have our programming set up, we have our ethos and our methodology set up, we have our network and our mentors and our connections, we have the place built, and then go, right? Then what? How was like, I know what the first year was like, but how was the first year for you?
Yeah, that was crazy, man. I remember I was doing, I was trying to manage the team. I was trying to make sure operations were running smoothly. I mean, we were like relentless with our operations. We were going every single week. We would do 3 weeks on and 1 week off, I think was our initial. But I don't really know many people that work for 21 days straight without a break, especially with the energetic load that is this medicine work. And so by the time the week would come, it would just feel like a day, really. And then you're back to another 3 weeks ahead of you. Right. And that was definitely difficult. And I was at the time, kind of managing operations, I remember even liaising for maintenance issues and just running around and then doing all of the bookings and online stuff and emails and marketing and social media. And it was just it was crazy. It was crazy. But I think that, like I said, I'm really glad I didn't know what I was getting into, but I am also really proud of us that we did it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world because those lessons were invaluable. Even the ones that, I had to learn the really hard way by being diagnosed with a nerve issue in my shoulder from too much computer work. Really you kind of have to go through the ringer. I had to go through the ringer. Right. And it's funny because our integration book's called The Hero's Journal, and it's based off the hero's journey. And I think that for me, that was wow, going really into the mix there and learning my own limits and pushing past my limits to then realize how it was imperative to come back into balance. That was actually the only way we were going to really fulfill our mission.
Yeah, I feel that. I recall, I can't remember if it was the first year or the second year, but I ended up getting shingles on my face.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, so just such a high stress environment. Health problems are another common thing in entrepreneurship with entrepreneurs because
believe it.
Stress is a real killer. It's a real thing. And when you've got your whole livelihood hanging on the outcome of a not just livelihood, but as you alluded to, identity and,
community and the livelihoods of all of our employees and the investors put their faith into us and just rallied around us and put their retirement savings into this mission because they trusted us. Right. And it's a lot of weight. And I mean, ultimately, you were the one that was really accountable financially for them too. So I can only imagine the amount of stress that led to shingles that you were under as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got through it. So I think so we opened June 20th, 2018. And by kind of the end of 2019, early 2020, that's how long it really took us before, like, at that point you still hadn't delegated the communications job. So you were still doing the communications job. We had gone through a number of phases where like there was like, less than 10 grand in the bank or something like that, and there are a couple times I had to do emergency fundraising to bail us out. But then, we started to feel somewhat secure and stable kind of right at the beginning of 2020.
Do you remember your intuition right before 2020 happened?
Yeah. I don't know if it's intuition as much as it was just statistics and like watching these entrepreneurs who I follow, who've been very helpful to me, and everybody's saying, look, we haven't had a major crisis in 10 years, and these things happen every 7 to 10 years. So like, you better be ready for a crash. You better be ready for a crisis. And I'm like looking at our books going, we're not ready for anything right now.
Yeah.
And then at that point you were like, you had found Francesca, right? And you were like coordinating to get your right hand to come in and give you a hand with all this. And then
it was crazy too. I mean, yeah, maybe for you it was like, okay, this is the landscape, but I have to say that the timing of that with you was so lucky, because it was December right around then, 2019. Like COVID wasn't really a thing, talked about very much at that point. And we were looking ahead at like a big operational cash crunch over the next couple of months. And still at that point, we were like doing 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And you were like, I think that if we don't add in retreats on those weeks off, even like shorter ones, like we have a problem basically, because 3 weeks being closed for 25% of the time was not getting us anywhere in the positive, right? And so for us, we were like, wow, okay, yeah, okay, that's true. And that sucks. But we have to do it. And so we rallied, like our team, I got to hand it to our beginning of 2020 team there, that, we were just like, all right, guys, let's do it. We're going to do 12 weeks straight from New Year's until March 15th. And the first week that we were closed out of 3 months was the week that all the borders shut. And if we hadn't added those 2 extra weeks in, like that was all of the extra that we had that got us through the next 6 months. And the other crazy part of that was if we had been closed and we had people there, like that would have been a huge expense too. That would have very quickly drained more of our reserves if we had 20 people trapped with us and for X amount of time. I mean, we already had our team and 4 healers that, 2 of them weren't supposed to be there for longer than a week. So it was just super lucky that we just had our team to take care of. And like, we had just come off of this crazy stint, but that gave us the cushion. Just like, that was the reason we survived. And then the other synchronicity that happened that allowed us to survive was in July, when we were looking at, we were looking ahead and we were like, we can't just like indefinitely keep going and like not have anything to plan for. If we can't sell retreats now, we're going to die before we even get to open again. And I remember we were like, okay, August, September, I don't know. November 1 is like the start of the high season. It's as long from now as it is since COVID started. Maybe that's enough time. Let's just put our flag in the ground, start like planning for that. And literally as the time got closer and closer, it was like September, October, flights were opening up more and more. And then like November 1st, Costa Rica opened all borders. So
luckily we already had like full retreats booked.
Yeah, because could you imagine if we had to then reschedule everyone? I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but this is where I kept the faith. Like I was like, wow, like those 3 things, like you opening those extra weeks, and then us like having just the break be when the borders closed and then opening on time and being able to like stand behind that date and actually follow through with it, which I think built a lot of trust in like the chaotic times that were happening with the community. And so, it's like these little things where it's like for Soltara and for us, I keep feeling like we get to the edge of like, okay, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe this is going to fail. And we almost have to like accept failure. And then something happens that is just so lucky. And, we pull through somehow. And I've found that to be the case, like for many people too, when you're like in alignment with what you're trying to do, the universe will throw you a bone when you need it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever accepted failure. I've like in regards to this project, I've just, I don't know. It's weird. It's kind of like a killer's instinct. Like I just get really mad and I'm just
definitely not.
I'm just going to do anything I can. Like I don't care. I'm not failing. Not at this time, but
yeah,
just to give people kind of a window into, what that kind of pressure can be like. It's like, okay, so as you described, the end of 2019, cash crunch, didn't know how we were going to make payroll. So we had to work 12 weeks straight to basically, make payroll, keep our heads above water. And we were looking forward to, continuing on with kind of this new programming. And COVID hits, and immediately we had like 200 some people that had booked retreats for those months that we had to close down for COVID. And, us just being a new company and having kind of like a cash crunch at that time, it's like everybody wanted their money back basically. And we couldn't pay out all that money. So it was like, we're kind of wrestling against that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the total uncertainty that everybody was feeling. That's the thing. Everybody was feeling the uncertainty. All the people who had paid for retreats, they're like, I don't know when this is going to happen. I lost my job. So everybody's,
it was crazy. It was so heartbreaking just to feel the suffering of everybody,
Yeah.
having to like wrestle with that. And I mean, luckily a lot of people were understanding and really helped us out. Like I have a lot of gratitude for the people that were like, you know what, keep my deposit on file. We'll figure it out kind of thing.
And we've worked through all that now, right?
We just finished.
So we ended up paying out.
Everyone who wanted a refund. It took us time, but we were like, okay, we'll put you on a list. We'll get there. Once we reopen, we're going to, do a certain amount each month. And it was a significant amount of money and we just finished it. So yeah, I feel good about that. And, sad that it took so long, but I think everyone was really understanding. It was just a crazy time for everybody, and I think having like this spirit of like, we're in this together and we're going to do right by each other as much as we can and try and make it so we can all survive is like, that's kind of how we had to rally. And, it worked.
So then we get through COVID. We timed so in July, we planned for a November 1st opening and we started taking new bookings and reprogramming people who had already paid deposits for then. We get to like September and Costa Rica's still locked down. They're starting to like open up a couple of flights in September to like places that like the states in the US that like,
certain states
that were locked down. And so we I think it was like kind of around the start of September and we're like, is November want to go? We don't really know. We're going to decide 6 weeks before. So like we were like September 15th. Okay.
That's
we're
right.
going to decide, is November want to go or do we have to kick it back again? And the reason November 1 looked good, like Mel said, is because it was the high season, but also the Chamber of Commerce in Costa Rica was putting a lot of pressure on the government because they're like, okay, we lost our last season. We can't afford to lose another season again, or else there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people without work, basically. So then we get open, timed it perfectly, literally the same day flights open, we open, and we start post-pandemic, not post-pandemic because there's still COVID around, but like, post-lockdown operations. How was that getting back online after 6 or 7 months of being shut down?
Yeah, I mean, at least I had gotten a little bit more sleep during that time, which was good. There was still like the existential dread of like feeling like we're not out of the woods yet, and like we have to, like, what if COVID happens here? Like we can put all of our measures in place that we have, and you still just don't know. So it was a little bit intense, and I think also kind of like coming back online after all that time off, there was a lot that I felt
People
like
were rusty, eh?
people were, yeah. Well, it was also like, what was this? Like, how do we actually want to like evolve from this? And I remember over the pandemic, you and I had a lot of conversations about like, how are we actually going to grow from this? Like you kept the optimism alive in me of like, can we use this time to get better, and not just kind of like wallow in the existential crisis that, everyone was in. And that was still very present, but I think it was, you and I were both kind of strategizing like, how do we actually make this better? Because we have a chance here. And it kind of felt like opening a new business in a way, but that already had like an established community. And so it was interesting because I felt like there was a lot of experimenting that was happening in terms of like the structure of the business on the back end, and how, how the staff was structured and who was kind of doing what. And so, yeah, it definitely took some ironing out of kinks. And I think, with so much going on, we ended up losing some people too, to various life experiences and circumstances. And so, honestly, it's been really challenging. And the first couple months of 2021 just kind of felt like this continuation of one challenge after another. But I think through all of that, like these were hard lessons that felt like an evolution of the hard lessons from before. Like we were like, okay, this is more about like, how do we maintain the high standard that we've set for ourselves? How do we take this to the next level? How do we climb that second mountain, right? To quote the full fuck yes. And I think that like these are problems that are also kind of exciting for me, because it feels like, okay, we're actually like moving forward, we're making progress, and it's still really hard, but it's like the kind of hard that shows that we've been places already.
Yeah, definitely not our first rodeo.
Yeah.
Cool. So now here we are in Q2 of 2021.
Already. Wow.
We've basically, the November and December of 2020 were a little on the rough side. A lot of additional complications for travel for people.
Oh my God. I would feel like I was changing the travel logistics every 3 days. Like it was extremely complicated. And luckily everyone was super understanding too. Like it was cool because everyone was so like ready to actually come and do this work that they just showed up, and it was like every single week was so transformational, and still is. Like it feels like this time of like, yeah, our work definitely isn't done. Like people are coming, and it's so inspiring because they're the ones that have taken the extra leap, gone through the extra bullshit, like cut through all of that and really made it a mission to come here. And so I think that's been like such a catalyst for so many groups coming through of just like real change. And that's been, so that's been great. And I feel like now we're kind of like looking ahead towards like, how can we really serve the movement a little bit more as well? Like we have some capacity for that now, and some exciting projects on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting time. I personally feel very fortunate to have, weathered the storm. And I credit a lot of that to just following the right people and learning from the right people in order, because I mean, I was very, very, feeling very bleak during the pandemic. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was definitely very, very angry about what was going on around the world. And after having come through all of these challenges that you described in the first year and a half or 2 years of the company, I was feeling very, very upset and very, very angry. A lot of rage. but having these great mentors that just constantly talking about how to look at crises with an optimistic viewpoint, take this time to get better, take this time to like restructure things, take this time to think about the future. There is a future. The future's bright. Don't let this shit get you down. I think that played a big role in being able to come through that. And because I think we were able to take that approach and to look at how we can make use of this time, not just, we did plenty of wine and Netflix, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, but we also use that time to really analyze how we can get better, as you said. And here we are. I feel very extremely fortunate, actually, because there's a lot of people and a lot of companies, unfortunately, like in Peru, where they're not doing so well right now. And the fact that we kind of weathered the storm, and people have been responding so well to what we do here, that Soltara is finally feeling like an established company, and we're not worried about the next payroll. That's a big threshold to cross, is when you're no longer worried about how you're going to make the next payroll. And, so here we are. And as you said, we got some exciting projects on the horizon where I maybe don't want to jinx it and talk too much about it, but maybe in broad strokes, where do you see Soltara going from here?
Man, yeah, I have so many. I think there's so much opportunity right now to be. And I mean, we're just so on the tip of the wave with this psychedelic renaissance that's happening. And, you have clinical trials pulling through in the US, and just so much more psychedelic therapy becoming something that's more well known. And, there's companies popping up that are doing great things. And, there's also like a real need around the world right now for a deeper connection to our roots. And I think that that's something that is so special about this medicine, is just like really connecting people back to who they are, back to the earth, back to each other, back to the land. And, there's so much wisdom in the way that the healers live and serve this medicine and the container that they hold. And, I think that we have an opportunity to help be a bridge for that, because a lot of times in psychedelic science, for example, they miss that connection to the ceremony, to the ritual, to the tradition. And that's so important, as we know, for what I feel like is, the deeper layers of healing. It's not just kind of going to a clinic and taking a pill. And again, that can be helpful, but at the same time, it's like for me, it's like, how do we help complete the medicine wheel here? And how do we allow the roots of what we're doing to have a strong footing, and to really be able to bear the seeds of this work? And so for us, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of different aspects and branches that we could go, but whether that's, scientific studies and helping kind of move psychedelic science forward, which is something that we're doing, contributing to the understanding and of the importance of ceremony and ritual. And actually, a study just came out through Brandon Weiss and the University of Georgia that we've been working on for several years now, about ayahuasca inducing changes in personality. And he studied our guests over the last few years. And I love what came out, because the second paragraph of the entire study was dedicated to the importance of ceremony and ritual in the actual outcomes of these personality changes. And, to me, that feels like a really big win, because that is this holistic view that I think is so important, this integrative view of what healing is. And so how can we continue to be a beacon for that? How can we continue to work with the healers that we work with to bring this medicine forward, and in a way that honors their roots? And And then how can we contribute to the movement, whether we're offering dietas and deeper immersion for people, whether we are improving our integration program and helping to continue to be a high standard for the industry. How do we partner with ethical companies and ensure that, ethical standards are something to come together and strive for and collaborate on and maintain in the movement, because it can be a little bit of a Wild West right now. How do we continue to share the power of this in a way that is adjunct to the medicine world that is allopathic medicine? I don't think that science and spirituality have to clash. To me, it's like, this is like integration is the whole theme here. Like, how can we support people holistically? And so, yeah, trying to be vague here, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities.
Maybe we have some news down the line. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, like, ultimately, it's, I go into ceremony and I ask ayahuasca, like, what do you want? Like, how can I help? How can I help serve this work more? And, ultimately that's what guides me in this. I'm in service to the medicine, and it's working through us and through everyone that comes through and shows up to do the healing work and then goes back home to their communities and, affects change. And I think those ripples are what we're really here to do.
Good stuff. Straight from the source, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the sun is going down and it's a Friday afternoon and it's your day off. So
it's okay. This stuff gets me fired up.
You have any final comments you'd like to share with people? How can people reach you? How can people get in touch with Soltara? Any kind of cool things they should check out related to this?
Yeah, definitely follow us on Instagram. We got at Soltara Healing Center. We got soltara.co. You got me. I'm Melissa Lynn Stangl on Instagram. And definitely just, would love for anyone who's interested in this work to join our community, be on our listserv. We try and share as much as possible and just provide good resources and access to, high quality education and ways to continue to pursue this work and this healing. So yeah, join our community and become part of the Soltara family. Onwards we go.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, my friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Big thanks to Melissa for making the time. And hope that we can see many of you down here in Costa Rica, or at least communicate with you online.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for everything you do.
Adios.
The Daniel Cleland Podcast.
Thank you so much, my friends, for checking out the Daniel Cleland Podcast. We love you and appreciate you. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, share it up with your friends and loved ones who might benefit from these episodes. And if you'd like to check out more episodes, we've got some links conveniently placed over there. So check it out, share it up. And until next time, be well. Much love to you. Thank you so much.